transforming relationships. There is no more fruitful avenue of spiritual growth than that of transforming painful relationships into rewarding ones. In our relations with other persons, we are actually looking at the dynamics of our inner self in a form we can see in the outer world. When we heal our relationships, we heal ourselves. Many psychologists tell us that problems exist between us when there is a lack of communication. This is true, but we need to discover why communication is not flowing. Lack of communication is really a lack of feeling communion. When we see other people as separate or alienated from ourselves, we slice up the universe into limited chunks, and in so doing, we erect prison bars around our heart. When we realize our unity with others, when we feel with them instead of at odds with them, the joy of our being together comes naturally. An existential author said, "Hell is other people." He was correct, but not in the way that he meant it. It would add 2 quotation marks to his sentence to make it accurate. Hell is other people. Put another way, hell is thoughts of otherness. When we believe, I'm in here in my own separate existence, and there are other people in their separate existence, we set the scene for the experience of a hellish life. For we have denied the truth of our oneness with all people, with all life, and with God. When Jesus was asked, "What is the greatest commandment of all?" he answered, "God is one." If hell is other people, heaven is one people. If I could boil down what I believe is the key to healing in relationships, it would be forgiveness. As I see more and more how forgiveness works, it is clear to me that the power of forgiveness is far greater than any tool or weapon known to man. Forgiveness is letting go of ideas of sin, guilt, and evil. When we forgive another, we free not only them but ourselves as well. Anger, bitterness, and resentment take their toll on he or she who would hold on to such negation. When we let go of judgments and bitterness, we remove from our shoulders and hearts a heavy load of pain. If I find myself holding on to any resentment, I must let it go for my own good. God will not punish us in the afterlife for our bitterness, for we have already punished ourselves through lost love and aliveness. When Jesus said, "Love your enemies, do good to those who spitefully use you, and bless those that curse you," he was not just uttering spiritual platitudes. He was giving a scientific formula for resolving painful human relationships and bringing about inner and outer peace. He knew the healing power of love. He knew that people want to feel united and whole. He knew that seeing others in the light of forgiveness is the only way to complete our love. The Pharisees were aghast at Jesus' acceptance of the adulterous woman. "Your sins are forgiven," he told her. "Go and sin no more." They cried, "Blasphemy! No man has the power to pronounce forgiveness. Only God can forgive." In a way, they were correct, but not in the way that they believed. No man has the power to pardon someone else's sin, because in reality there has never been any sin. There have been plenty of thoughts of sin, which is what the phrase is held in their readiness to condemn. Jesus, however, was one in consciousness with God. He saw the situation from a godly point of view, and in God consciousness all is God, and there is no place for sin. Jesus was not undoing or changing anything that the woman had done. All he did was to look at the chastity of her soul and tell her the truth that he could have spoken with equal authority to anyone, saint or sinner. Your sins are forgiven. Jesus was looking at the inner perfection, the sinless light within the woman. This is what we need to do as well to heal our relationships. We must focus on the purity and the perfection of those against whom we are prone to hold judgment. Forgiveness of sins is not a special boon reserved for Jesus Christ or for priests, judges, or anyone else. We are all equally endowed children of the Most High. Jesus also said, "Greater things than I shall ye do." Outer harmony in relationships is a manifestation of harmony and acceptance within ourselves. If we hold any ill will or animosity toward anyone, it will be reflected in our outer interaction with them. If we are to bring a troubled relationship into peacefulness, we must first find serenity and the vision of good intention within our own consciousness. I had a startling experience that demonstrated this to me. One evening I attended a lecture on the power of positive thinking. The speaker gave us this exercise. Close your eyes and let the face of someone who you are not getting along with pop into your mind. Immediately, the image of a woman who lived next door to me came into my mental view. I squirmed to think of her. When I and several of my friends had moved into a large house, our neighbor, Mrs. Ryan, began to feel threatened. This was a fairly conservative neighborhood, and there were 5 young men with beards moving in next door. We heard that she attempted to pass a petition around the neighborhood to have us ejected on the premise that we were a gang of undercover terrorists. Meanwhile, we were a bunch of meditating vegetarians. She then found many opportunities to create situations about which she could complain, and she literally built a fence between our houses. I reacted and felt pretty uncomfortable with her as well. When this lecturer suggested to take the image of someone we didn't like, I had no trouble picking her. Now he guided us. Imagine this person standing a few feet away from you. Oh no, I thought. Take a few deep breaths and relax until you feel a little more comfortable with their face. Reluctantly, I did so. Now walk up to the person and take their hands. I can't do that, I thought. She'll probably run away screaming, and even in my imagination. But I did it anyway. Now I want you, in your mental picture, to embrace this person. Look them in the eyes and tell them I love you. Well, by that time, I had surrendered to the exercise, and I carried out his instructions. I was able to let go of some of my animosity towards Mrs. Ryan, and I actually felt better about her. He then told us, this is a very powerful method for resolving troubled relationships. If you practice this for 5 minutes a day for 3 weeks, one of 2 things will happen. your relationship with this person will clear up, or they will leave your life. Either of those alternatives sounded fine to me. To be quite honest, I didn't practice the exercise again. But something remarkable did happen. A few days later, one of my roommates was picking tomatoes in the garden when Mrs. Ryan called to him, "Mark, can I please have a word with you?" "Oh no," he thought. "What now?" "Mark, I bet you think I'm going to complain about something, don't you?" "Oh no," he replied. "What makes you say that?" He was a good actor, and in this case, a liar as well. "Well, you know, Mark, I've been thinking that I haven't been a very good neighbor." Mark almost fainted. "And I'd just like to say that I'm sorry if I've given you fellows a hard time." By now, Mark was engaged in some serious reality testing. Mrs. Ryan went on, "I know you boys. Some of us boys were 30 years old, are really nice fellows, and I want to be your friend." If Mark and I did not believe in miracles before then, we became immediate converts. Mark gave her some tomatoes, and our relationship with her improved after that time. As it turned out, Mrs. Ryan was actually a very nice lady, and we were very nice boys. But I had to see her lovability, accept her goodness, before I could experience it. The lesson or the miracle with Mrs. Ryan encouraged me to try this method of inner clearing again and again. It has worked every time. Whenever I feel any conflict between myself and another person, I seek to work it out first within myself. I visualize the person, send them much love and light, and I feel what it would feel like they were my friend. This technique has helped to transform many my relationships, and I recommend it to you with the greatest confidence. Relationships are lessons in tangible form that we need for our personal growth. If we are holding any unconsciousness about a character trait or some prejudice or judgment about any kind of action, someone who does the thing that we don't like will be drawn to us so that we may learn to let go and to love. The quickest way to free yourself of someone who does something that irritates you is to love and accept them with their trait. The more you fight it, the more prominent it will become. When you let go of your resistance, the person may or may not leave your life, but if you have truly released them, it will not matter. This places relationships in an entirely new light, challenge and promise. Persons that are hard to accept cease to be nuisances and become opportunities for us to practice understanding and forgiveness. When we experience any negative reaction to another person, we have a precious chance to reprogram our emotional computer. Someone once complained to Hilda, "I can't stand to visit my parents. I have to watch them eat meat." Hilda's advice: if I were in that situation, I'd go and sit down next to the one that had the biggest piece of meat, and when the meat was being passed around for seconds, I'd offer them some more. I'd make myself sit there until I was relaxed and happy, and I felt a lot of love for that person. In India, Satya Sai Baba sometimes blesses a proposed marriage by saying, very happy, when one of his followers agrees, yes, Baba, I'm sure they will be happy from the start. He sometimes corrects, happy from the start? That is not what I said. They will rub each other's ego down like the best sandpaper. Then they will be happy. Then they will really be happy. What then marriage is all about? What makes some marriages successful and others fail? How do we know if our intended marriage will work? How can we save a marriage that is not working? Why is the divorce rate so high? These are questions that many of us have wrestled with. Questions which have too often been answered through pain and hardship. I would like to share with you some of my observations on relationships. We might say that our motivations for entering into marriage or a relationship can be distilled to two basic dynamic attitudes. I'm going to get something from this person, or I'm going to share with person. The first attitude leads only to pain, the second to joy. The first is seeking to get, the second to expand. Sharing works, taking doesn't. The question is, how whole do I feel in this relationship? Do I feel complete and full and enough without this person? Can I enter into this relationship without expecting to receive something from my partner that will make me more complete? Can I maintain the integrity of my own individual creativity with my partner? If we can sustain our awareness as full beings and enter into a marriage as an overflowing expression of the celebration of life, then the marriage will probably work. If, on the other hand, I am married to lean out on someone who will fill a gap within me that I feel I cannot fill myself, then I'm in for big disappointment. If I love you because you say you love me, or because you will have sex with me, or because you agree with my way of looking at life, or because you have a character trait that I feel I'm lacking, this is not love, but a business arrangement based on lack. In depending on you to fulfill my deeds, I'm affirming my weakness and establishing a marriage on marshland. As Jesus said, a house built upon sand cannot stand. The divorce rate affirms this parable. If the relationship is inaugurated on the foundation of celebration and overflow, we will receive many of the things that others marry in order to get. But they come as gifts and joy and not as a payoff. I see many marriages around me, and I see the relationship in which I have been involved. And it is clear to me that the reasons for which we are taught to marry and the myths about romantic marriage are more illusory than they are real. Based on illusion, deceptive. Eric Butterworth describes the two different types of relationships in a very neat way. In one relationship, we are hypnotized, staring moodily into each other's eyes. In the other, we stand together, hand in hand, looking out the window onto the greater panorama of life. In the first, we have made gods of each other. In the second, we rejoice together in acknowledging the one God. In the first, we have narrowed down our source of happiness to one little person. In the second, we remain open to the fulfillment that all of life can offer to us. The relationships that I have seen work are those in which the partners seek to serve and support each other with encouragement and confidence, where the partners refrain from making demands upon each other, and where the individual's creativity of each person is honored and encouraged. More important, the relationship that have God at their center, or that have at least some kind of commitment to a higher purpose than to fulfill each other's fantasies, are the ones that are the strongest. People with individual spiritual foundations create marriages with strong spiritual foundations. Anything that is dedicated to the ideals of godliness works. Can we heal a relationship that has not been based on these ideals? Yes, we certainly can. In fact, many of the strongest and most rewarding relationships are those that have been transformed. As we begin to allow God into our lives, we find the strength and the wisdom to create peace and harmony where there once seemed to be none. We discover new ways to give love, and to our happy surprise, the love and the freedom that we give another to grow and expand are returned to us many times over. If we truly want to enjoy fulfilling relationships in marriage, with our children, or in the office, we must be willing to be big enough to give love before we receive it. We must not allow our actions or attitudes towards others to depend on their toward us. We must have the faith to see a possibility for goodness in another, though they recognize it not themselves. Someone put it in a lovely poetic form. They drew a circle that kept me out, but I and God were bound to win. We drew a circle that kept them in. Jesus said it this way: "You have been told, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. I tell you to forgive." Someone asked him, "Master, how many times shall we forgive?" 7. "Nay," he answered, 70 times 7. In other words, just keep right on forgiving. I would like to conclude these thoughts on relationship with a promise of the unlimited possibilities to positive change through forgiveness. I want to tell you that it is possible to help a troubled relationship even with someone who has passed on. This is possible because all such healing is a result of inner forgiveness and spiritual love. Relationships are lessons in inner growth. If we can grow to a point where what the other person still alive, we would be in harmony with them. We have learned the lessons of the relationship, and it is complete. My dad and I did not have very good communication in our relationship. We loved each other in a family kind of way, but we were not intimate, like friends. In my adolescent years, I was sometimes disrespectful toward him, and I did not give him as much honor or understanding as I would now like to give him. In the years following his passing, I did a lot of growing up. As I learned the importance of respect and understanding, I shuddered to think how uncourteous I had been to my dad. In my heart, I wished to apologize to him and to tell him of my love and appreciation for him. One night, he came to me in a dream. In this dream, I met him at a party, and he was radiant and peaceful, while he was overweight and reclusive in life. At this party he was slim and friendly. When we greeted, he told me that he was doing fine, and I was very happy to see him. How joyous he was! I felt too that he now had his own life to live. We parted in friendship and mutual respect for each other's path. I awoke from the dream with a deep sense of resolution and peacefulness about my father and myself. I believe that our relationship was healed even after he left this life. This experience and the others like it have served as my lessons in what is necessary to transform relationships. As I have learned more about how to love, forgive, and find goodness in myself and others, have discovered that forgiveness is a gift from God that always heals. I know that it can heal our relationships, our lives, and our world. In so doing, shall it mend our broken hopes, return to us our forgotten dreams, and bestow upon us the miracle of grace. Fulfilling relationships, I have found, are not too good to be true. They are good enough to be true. Thank you so much.